I love playing with these slower shutter images. And this one we got, I mean, it's certainly not tack sharp, but damn, come on, right? Give me credit for a tenth of a second. I'll take it. All right. So, first things first. I think I want to leave this entire scene sort of hazy like this. So, I'm actually going to lean into that a little bit more globally. I think I'm going to do like some negative dehaze to just kind of really, yeah, lean into that. And I think I'm going to cool it off to make it look like it's that earlier morning vibe. And let's go a little bit dimmer. Although, I don't know, sort of like that lighter feel. Boy, this is tough. Usually I know right where I want to go with a photo. This one is sort of leaving me up in the air. Maybe just, yeah, a little bit lighter like that, I think is good. I think I'm going to throw a radial in up here. We'll feather it to the max, and then I will darken that corner up there. Well, actually, I don't think I want to do that either. Let's go the other way. Let's lighten it. I want the duck to be sort of the darkest thing in the image. And then I'm going to throw a linear on these rocks with even more of the sort of negative dehaze to sort of fade them out. I will darken that whole thing a bit and go even a little bit more blue with that just to keep it into that cool tone. All right, there we go. Now let's go for a subject select and see if it grabs that duck for me. It did, but just his head. So you know what? We are not going to use Lightroom for this because I hate Lightroom's manual like painting tools. So this one is good where it's at. We're going to do edit in Photoshop as a smart object. So I can play with the raw file data in there just for that Barrow's Golden Eye. All right, so first move is then new smart object via copy. Double click that. Oops, guess we got to double click here. And now I can go the opposite, right? We can really crank in some of that dehaze to sort of cut through and get the contrast on that duck. Brighten it up a little bit. I'm going to drop the blacks on that even more. I really want some good contrast on that duck. And I might want some of that layer in other places now that I see it. So let's mask it. We'll invert it. I think I do want it a little bit in the background here. So let's go. We'll stick with this brush here. Let's do 20% opacity. Paint a little bit of that across the back there and maybe a little bit more into that waterfall just so we sort of see that. And now we're going to come in on the duck here. Okay, so we're going to go with a harder edge brush, 100% opacity at this point, and we're going to paint with white. And so I want to just make sure I don't paint any of the background. So anywhere I overlap, I'm just kind of switching to black. And here we go. We paint with white. Now, it is getting, well, let's stay with this. We'll just do a bigger brush. I was going to say it's not perfectly tack sharp along the back here, but we'll stay with that for now and see what we end up with. I went a little into the background, so switch to black, and now I'll switch back to white. Just pressing X on the keyboard is the easiest way to just switch back and forth. So you don't have to keep going over to that toolbar over there and clicking it around, left and right. It's kind of annoying. Or not left and right, but back and forth with the black and white, right? So don't worry about that bottom edge. I know that's strangely sharp. We're going to fix that in just a second. But I always tend to mask these things in like this 100% all the way at first. And then we'll grab a softer edge brush, big brush, come in with black, and then we just sort of paint that across the bottom to get rid of that hard edge, right? So there we go. Look at that. Now our duck is standing out like crazy. See that? The whole top got a little bit darker, which I don't mind back there. I'm going to leave this front sort of washed out. And in fact, I'm probably going to soften up this even a little bit more. But yeah, there we go. That's the sort of contrast and color I wanted. I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to leave the back of the duck darker like that as well, just so you can see the whole body in the water like that. The only thing that this does is sort of, it shows the water movement in here a little bit more. So let's go down to 20% opacity, paint with white, and we'll hit this area a little bit right there. Just that sort of wave that's coming into the bird there. Even that whole area, sort of like what's happening there. I'll hit that a couple spots. Maybe even a little bit at the bottom here. Yeah, it turns out I liked some more of that, just not on that spot. All right, I'm going to go ahead and flatten the image at this point because this will be just basically like my base layer. And then I'm going to add a retouch layer on top of that. We'll grab our clone stamp tool. Let's do 20% opacity. We'll sample up here, paint that once, twice, sample over here, paint a couple times over. I'm just looking to lighten that real dark spot on the rock there that was showing, and even these dark spots up here. Just trying to sort of minimize the contrast and what's showing on those rocks. So there we go. I think that's pretty good. Let's see what a little contrast does if I add that in. Boy, that's fun. Let's try clicking that again. There we go. So we'll lift it up just a little bit, drop down the blacks right up in there. I think I like that. Let's see. Yeah, I like that in some areas, so I'm going to stick with a nice low opacity. 1 stroke, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll hit the bird a little bit more with that. And let's see what that did. Yeah, I like that. That's a nice touch. And then let's just lighten up that eye just a tad. We don't want to go crazy. It's already a nice bright yellowy green eye. So a little bit of a lift there on the exposure right there. We'll come back in with 100% opacity because I can always just sort of dial the curve back after I paint it in. Yeah, you can see that's way too bright. So look, that was original. We'll go to like there. Before, after. Yep. I just sort of punched that eye up just a little bit. This is a cool shot. I'm happy with this. I, of course, wish there was less of this kind of ugly stuff hanging there. Let's see if there's one last thing we can do to sort of minimize that. Curves adjustment layer. We'll just make it look like there's more of that sort of haze hanging back there. So I'm just lessening the contrast a lot on that section. We'll stick with a big brush here. Let's go 30% opacity, paint with white. Click, click, click. Some brush strokes as well. Let's see what we think. Before, after. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not really lessening me seeing it back there. What happens if I darken that? And then maybe it does need a little bit more blue to sort of fit in back there. So there, let's try that. Before, after. That lessens the contrast a little bit on it. I think I'll take that. There we go. So before, after. But the biggest change we had came from using the dehaze on a second smart object layer. So I'm saving this. I will reset the original and we'll look at the total before and after. I really like the sense of space in this. The duck really stands out. And then we get that sense of movement in the water, which is really cool. When I reset this, we should see quite a big difference between our before and after there. Not as big as I thought, actually. But you can see, like, just the duck itself, like, it pops way more. You know, we go from that to that. I think the cooler color and tones really fit that sort of steamy, foggy vibe, which is exactly how it was that morning, right? I remember it to my eye. It was earlier in the morning, and the steam was sort of that fog was rising up off the water because it was cold air but warmer water. And so, yeah, that just sort of leans into it. But, yeah, look at this compared to that. Watch, see how much more the duck just stands out. Yeah, there we go. That's our first one. Okay, now this one definitely shows the movement of the water more, which I really, really like. I think, again, I'm just going to go with that cooler vibe. I don't know. There's just something about, I feel like it fits these scenes in general, at least until there's, you know, brighter sun, then it won't make any sense anymore. Now, I don't want to be like in here, like making the water crazy blue because it wasn't that early, but, you know, like, if that's the original white balance, just shifting it, you know, kind of into there where I'm starting to see some slight blue tone show up. I think that totally works. All right. This one is going to be harder to fake, like really light on all of these areas. So I think I'm just going to kind of contrast in the blacks there, punch up the highlights a little bit, maybe the whites even. I definitely want to get some contrast on that water, maybe even lighten the exposure just a tad, and drop those blacks even more. I will throw a linear up in here, just sort of take down that brightness up there. And then just for whatever reason, this one sort of hunch of water there, is that a right word? Hunch of water? I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about. I'll cool it off. It was a little bit too warm. So there we go. Keep a little bit more of those cooler blue tones in there. And I think I'm happy with that. So into Photoshop we go. I didn't even need to bother with a crop. Actually, kind of really like how that one's composed to begin with. Definitely want to get more color and contrast on this duck. So let's darken the head there a little bit, and then we'll brighten it up a little bit more as well. And then maybe just tone down right in there. There we go. So let's paint some of that in. We'll go with that harder edge brush, 100% opacity. And we'll start painting that in there. Maybe, I guess this harder edge brush works there. Yeah, that's working. I don't know if I like the bill going as light as it did. It seems like, sometimes when you add a lot of contrast, it actually lessens the color of what you're trying to do there, but we'll see. I'll toggle the before and after on that, and we'll take a look. There we go. Yeah, look at that, just painting that wash away, sort of. It definitely too bright on the bird's body there, but again, just like the previous one, I'll paint it in too far. We'll grab that soft brush, paint with black, sort of fade it off the edge there. A light fade across the bottom there as well, just to get rid of those lines. And then we'll stay with the smaller brush. Let's go down to 30% opacity, paint with black, and just 1, 2 across the neck there. And then let's see, yeah, 1, 2, 3. We'll just kind of dim down that bill a little bit. So before, after. Yeah, there we go. Especially on like the grand scheme of this, before, after. See how it just really contrasts and pops that bird out. All right, now let's try a curve that sort of dims down and lessens contrast along all this brush stuff in the back. So we'll stay with this bigger brush. Let's go 50% opacity. We'll hit that a little bit. Oh, we got to switch to white. There we go. Paint that in a little bit. And then maybe a second pass across the lighter areas back there. And we'll dim down this rock again as well. And then I'm just going to try a contrast preset that I have, or an action, not a preset, right? So I press the F1 key on my keyboard, and it just automatically puts a curve in there that kind of changes like that. I want to see if that improved anything. Not particularly, so I'm going to actually anchor the highlight point about where it was and then just drop the shadow point here. And I'm only watching the water. I don't really care what it does anywhere else, but yeah, I kind of like the contrast that does in some places. But what I don't like is, look at the color of the water, like in that area and that area. Watch, before, after. You see how the color gets wacky? So watch, I'm just going to change this to luminosity. So now look, there's normal, luminosity. See, watch in here, normal. See the colors, luminosity, no colors there. So now I'm just getting the contrast effect without that annoying color shift. So we'll stay with the big brush here. Let's go 40% opacity. Just paint some of that in around there, maybe right in through. Basically like these areas that are really showing the movement there is what I'm looking to contrast up a bit. So we go like that. Yeah, cool. All right, so before, after, and let's lighten up this rock a little bit. So we'll do another curve, just really sort of wash out that rock in the foreground, invert that, a couple of painting strokes across that, and then we'll cool it off as well. So I'll go to the blue channel and just sort of lift that up a little bit there. Not much. There we go. Before, after. It's getting a little too light, so I'll just bring down that highlight point a bit. I'm looking to lessen the contrast, not completely lighten the area. All right. I'm happy with that, folks. This one I really like. This one just shows the crazy turbulence that the water is, where that duck is hanging out. It's just kind of mind-blowing. And like, look at that. I mean, that's pretty darn sharp. It's certainly not tack sharp, but for a 1/10 of a second, how crazy is it that that duck can hold its head still in that water? I think this was, another 1/10 of a second right there. Like, just nuts to me. All right, so there, look at that big difference before and after. See how flat everything looks? Flat and soft and kind of drab. And here we just punched everything up. We're really seeing the movement of the water a little bit more. There's a bit of a nice color to it. I really like the difference there. Flat and boring there in the original, and then nice punch there in the final image. I like that one a lot. This might be my favorite. We'll see as we go. All right, this one has the waterfall. I really, again, love the turbulent nature of everything there. And again, really nice sharp bird. So already has somewhat of the cooler tones. I don't know that I need to push much more. I mean, I guess I can do just a touch there. And then maybe, I don't know, this one's starting to get away from that feeling of coolness. The steam, the fog is sort of moved away at that point in the morning, and you can see it's pretty clear. I haven't added any contrast or anything yet. What happens if we lift the shadows? We get a little bit more brown out of it, and then I feel like I can drop the blacks. That's good on the bird, but I don't know if that helped in the background. Yeah, it gave me more texture in the background, which I guess is nice. I'm going to throw a linear on the front rock here and just do some negative dehaze. It's probably going to really wash it out, which is kind of what I'm after. I'll drop the feathering a little bit, but I am then going to darken it just a tad because I don't want it to sort of, I don't want it to get a lot brighter, So let's see if I probably went too far there. Yeah, so then I just back off. Oops, not the feather, but the amount. That's the slider I'm after. And we'll bring it closer back to what it was. And let's see. Yeah, that sort of just takes your eye away from that and makes it less of an obvious distraction there. All right, another radial up in here. And we'll keep the feather around the same there. I will just darken that one. Maybe lessen contrast, darken it again, drop the whites to sort of tone down that bit up there. And let's see if we can get a little bit more out of the waterfall. So a nice tall radial that I'll just kind of situate right in there. I'm going to feather this one up a little bit more, and let's see what dehaze does for me. Yeah, it's kind of showing through there. I'll lift up the exposure as well and add a little bit more dehaze. It's feeling almost a little too blue, so I'll warm it up just a tad. And let's see, before, after. Yeah, there we go. A little bit too light. And we'll kick that dehaze in just a little bit more. So I'm just trying to really dial this in the way I want. That's what I wanted to see, those streaks and the movement in the water a little bit more. All right. I don't think there's much else to do here in Lightroom, so let's go into Photoshop. I still want to figure out how to sort of minimize this. I just don't like the dead grass that's hanging there. It's pretty ugly. Let's see what happens if I just put a blank layer there and then maybe sample like this color at 30% opacity and just paint some of that over it. That's better. Let's do another 20% opacity. And then we'll go 1, 2, 3 there. That's better. That sort of fades it away. It just feels like it's darker and just less there, which is kind of what I want. All right. Curves adjustment layer. We are going to do some darkening on this side here a little bit as well. I'm going to kick back up to 40% opacity. Paint some in on that rock, maybe even along the bottom edge there. I feel like this whole bottom here can just take just a little bit of that. I don't know that we need much of anything on the duck. I mean, maybe we can hit that duck with a little bit of contrast. That might help it out just a tad. So let's see, we'll invert that, paint it in here. Just painting again. Just using this 40% opacity. We'll do a little across the back there. Let's see what that did. Before, after. I mean, it's subtle, but whatever. It popped the color on the bill a little bit more. And just like before, I'm going to try and see what this will do to the water. This time I think I can go a little bit lighter with the water. There we go. Invert that. We'll paint it in where we want it. A little bit across there. Maybe even a little down that. That's getting too bright back there for the waterfall. There we go. Let's see. Before, after. Yeah, good. All right, total before, after. Oh, yeah, I definitely like that. That's a good change overall. One more thing back on this layer. We're going to grab the clone tool, 50% opacity sample here, paint there, sample there. I'm just sampling to paint away all these darker and lighter spots, just, again, trying to flatten out or minimize the contrast and texture on that foreground rock. Because I wasn't able to get like the shallow depth of field there that I would have liked. All right, I think I'm done on that one. That orange bill and that yellow eye are just wonderful for standing out of this scene. I'm really glad I got that golden eye in there like that. All right, so we'll save and close. Take a look at the before and after there. Should be a good change on this one. So there's our raw file. Before and after right there. Quite a nice difference. There's our final image. I hope you guys like it. All right, continuing along here, let's start with this one. We'll straighten it out a little bit. This is a different golden eye that came in there. Ooh, let's lock those proportions again, keep things the same. So I'm just going to sort of level out the water movement there. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to try and even out the tone on this. So I'm going to adjust this for the back half. So we'll go a little bit lighter, lift up the exposure a little, drop those blacks, get the contrast in. Then we'll go ahead and drop in our linear gradient. Nice soft transition across the front there. Drop that exposure. And you can see it brings it down into the level of what's back there. Maybe we can even go a little bit more there. Yeah, something like that. All right, I think the rest can happen in Photoshop. I'm just going to clone out that annoying little branchy stick thing, whatever the heck that is. So new blank layer. I'm just going to use the spot healing brush and we'll just paint over that. Just make sure all layers and content aware is checked. That's nice and easy. Get this one as well with the clone stamp. We'll just do 100% opacity on these and that's good. All right. I want to darken that background texture just a little bit more. I want to see the texture a little bit, but not a ton. So 40% of that across. There we go. That's feeling good. All right, let's get some nice rich blacks on this golden eye. Drop that black point just a little bit. Maybe there. Punch up. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of that point actually. So we'll punch that up and then drop those blacks. Now, right about there. I don't want to lose detail in there. And then I'll bring that back down. There, that should be good. 100% opacity on this. Let's paint that in. Right on that duck's head, a little bit across there. I'm painting with black now to get rid of some of that effect. And let's see what that does. Before, after. Yeah, nice. Just richens up those colors a little bit. And then I think it's going to be just some play with the water here. So we'll do a little lighten on that. Nice darken, get that contrast going. I'll do like 60% opacity. Yeah, paint some in there. That's nice. A little bit in here, a little bit in there. I don't want this to get too white. So yeah, I think it's just better leaving that dim. And then we'll hit that again back there. Yeah, nice. Before, after. There we go. That's it. That's all it needed. Just a little bit of cleanup. You know, I know it's weird, but I know these are just splashes, but for whatever reason, they're sort of kind of distracting me because everything else is going a certain direction. And then you got these splashes just going at like a weird angle there. So I'm just going to get rid of those too because those are the only ones. And there we go. Yeah, it just sort of cleaned it up. All right. Save that one. I kind of like this one. It's a good proof of concept of getting the sharp photo with the slow shutter speed. It does show the motion, but it's just not quite as dynamic as the other ones, I believe. So it's a decent shot, but certainly not my favorite. There's the raw file. We'll reset that. Let's look at that before and after. Nothing too major there, but leaves you with that image. All right. Now we got another species. We got this common merganser. Same thing. We'll rotate for straight. I'll leave a little bit more of that back there this time. And then, yeah, we'll just come in a little bit just to minimize this rock. I do like the sense of water movement back there, so I don't want to lose that too much. All right. Gosh, I mean, darn, the bird looks pretty good, right? Maybe a little bit lighter, little shadow lift, drop the blacks for some contrast. And then linear on the back here, I definitely want to dim that down. I don't want it to be black, but kind of dim it down, take the whites down. There we go. Now that's less obnoxious. And then we got to deal with this rock here. It's already kind of soft, but I still think, yeah, some negative dehaze helps it out. We'll drop it, maybe even warm it. I think Warming isn't good. Maybe desaturate it. There we go. Yeah, I just didn't want it to be quite as blue. And then I'm going to drop a linear on this corner and just kind of tone that down a little bit. And then subtract another linear just to get rid of the rock off of that. There we go. Let's try another radial right in here because I think that whole area can use some highlight, maybe whites, maybe even exposure lift a little bit. There we go. Yep. Now that duck is standing out. And then maybe this area is just a little washed out. So another radial right there. Feather that one to the max. Drop the exposure a bit. Yeah, that's better. Cool. All right, into Photoshop. I don't know. What do I want to do here? I guess let's do a curve adjustment layer. We'll just sort of take down and burn down these lighter areas. So we'll invert that, paint it in. Let's do a 50% opacity. We'll paint with white. And I'm just trying to paint on the lighter spots here, not the existing darker spots. And then maybe we can hit some of this with it a little. I just didn't like that corner being quite so bright. Maybe even that whole bottom section there. I want to try and keep the viewer's eye in here. Let's try even a little bit more contrast. We'll see if that does the trick or if it's just too distracting on the water there. No, that helps with the water, especially right behind it there. And let's go with like a 30% pass over the bird. Yeah, nice. I like that. I mean, I don't think there's anything else to do that one. This is one of those few that like that thing is, I mean, that's tack sharp. And if I'm not mistaken, wait, where are the settings at? I always forget how to get that. No. There we go. Yeah, 15th of a second. Like, just still mind-blowing. Look, the whole bird's body's moving a bunch in the water there. And, I mean, it's just texture. You can see the serrations in the bill from that far away. Like, that's kind of nuts, isn't it? All right, there's one other example of these distracting splashes to me. I don't know why. I think because there's not enough of them to really show like, oh, look at that cool splash. They're just these weird kind of marks that are showing somewhere else. All right, so before, after. Yeah, that's a good shift. Brings all of our attention into the center area, which is what I want. And yeah, this one's got some nice sense of movement there with the turbulent water and everything like that. So that one's fun. All right, I'll do a quick before and after on this as soon as it's done saving. And then we'll move on to our next image. So there's the raw file. We'll reset it. There's our before and after. Yeah, look how, like, I feel like my eye is stuck up here between this dark rock and the bright water, and it's hard to get back to that bird. But then when we kind of switch it all around, it's a lot more even toned up here now, and then it's just brighter in there, so it keeps you hanging in there with that merganser. See, now that is a cool splash back there. That one I really appreciate. I do think, however, I'm going to try and minimize the rocks up top. Oh, I hate that crop. It always stays on lock. So now watch. I'll go there, and now it stays. So weird. Anyway, that looks pretty level on the water there. And yeah, like I said, I want to minimize that stuff up top there. I don't want to lose much of this waterfall. And I don't want to lose much of this. This might actually be a candidate for going a little bit more panoramic with it because I don't need all of that water down there. I guess I don't need that much out there, but there we go. Something like that seems kind of fun. Nice. This one I will cool off just a tiny, tiny bit. I feel like the white balance was getting a little bit too yellow there. Lift those shadows, drop the blacks for contrast. I mean, there's no getting around these rocks in this case, but I think we can leave it. What I can do, and what I will do, I'm going to do it in Photoshop, is sort of make the bird's head stand out more. So you can see around these light areas, it's standing out nicely, but right here, and maybe even a little right there, it's darker water just because of the way the water's hitting it. But if we change that and sort of lighten it up, and actually I might want to just lift the black point on that. We'll see. I don't know. I'll adjust it after the fact. But in any case, if we paint that in, so we get a hard edge brush, 100% opacity, and we'll paint it in right along the bill there. Try not to get any of the bill. We should be able to sort of fade this away. You know what? This is not the way to do it, actually. Oops, just inverted it. This is the better way to do it. We'll go soft brush, low opacity, like 30%, and then watch. We're just going to start painting in. I'm going to go down to 10% actually. This adjustment in these areas. Smaller brush here. And I'm going over the bird's bill, but that's fine. We'll put a little bit in back here as well, sort of fade that. And then let's lighten it up a little bit more now, because now that we have it painted in, see how I can control it. And then we'll go a little bit with the blue tone to sort of match everything that's there. Good. All right, so we have that. Now we'll zoom in, go back with that harder edge brush, back to 100% opacity, and we're going to paint with black. Now, this is important. Now we cannot go into the background. So I'm actually going to change the hardness to like 68% here, because I don't feel like the 80% hardness brush that I would normally use is going to fill in nicely. Man, so you got to do it just right there. I don't want to, you can't overlap into the background, because at this point I can't paint with white on the outside to show it, because it would paint that in, like watch, see, it'll paint in too much. So I can only remove it on the inside here, and I got to be really careful to keep a nice clean line there. There we go. So that's pretty good on all of that. Make sure we didn't miss any spots here, and then I know there's going to be some back here. So we'll just sort of paint that out, and then watch, if I option click or alt click that, I can see any of these areas that might have some of that paint that I missed. Right through there. There we go. So check that out. Watch when I zoom way out here. See before, after? Look, see how it just helps the shape of that, the bill and everything just kind of show up, and even the back of the head. And then we can do another curves adjustment layer, really punch up the highlights back there so it gets nice and bright and white, drop down the blacks, and we'll go in with a nice soft brush with 30% opacity, paint with white. And now this time we're going to go right over the bird. We'll hit the splashes, like any of these areas that I want the white to really show a little bit more. I'll kind of hit those areas like that. There we go. And then let's do what I've been doing on all the others. We'll just do a general like increase of contrast across the board there. Invert and get rid of that. We'll paint some of that in there. I'm going to go up to 60% opacity. Paint some of it in there, across there, in that waterfall, maybe even a little down at the bottom there. So there we go. Before, after. Yeah, see, it's just the bird's head shows so much cleaner in there. Maybe a little bit of a burn on this foreground rock. I think that might help out. So I'll do some darkening there. We'll invert that. Paint some of that in here, just in those lighter spots. And then maybe even that grass up there, we can kind of minimize that. Even take that rock down just a little bit. There we go. Before, after. I'm digging it. I think we're done. Let's save that one. I mean, come on. I love the sense of movement there. I would have loved to have seen more of the bird, and I would have loved for this rock to not be there at all. If that rock wasn't there and this was the only one, I really like that rock because it's just sort of splitting the water. You can see the water coming down there. I wish the merganser wasn't sort of peeking out behind there, but there's something kind of fun about that. So there's our before and after. Much, much better. The color's much more vivid. Way less distraction going on in this. So that's the original raw file there and our final image there. All right, this one's pretty fun, but I think I need some work to really get the duck to stand out. I had to shoot this at f20. It was so damn bright. You can see I got sunlight on it now and everything, so not the prettiest. So just a little level shift there, I think. Just feels right to me. I'm just going to get rid of the top there. That top is just kind of a mess. So this is, to me, where all the action's at. So I do want to lighten up the exposure so the white water gets pretty white there. We'll lift the shadows a little bit, drop those blacks for contrast, and then I'm going to throw a radial in around this whole area, and let's brighten up those highlights, the whites even more, I would say. I want to get that water around that duck nice and bright, and we'll drop those blacks some more, maybe even drop the shadows some. Yeah, because I want to keep his head dark. Basically, what I'm looking for is that dark head to stand out in amongst all the whitewash everywhere else, you know? We do have some blue reflecting off of the, the sunny sky, the sunny blue sky now. I don't know, it feels like almost a little bit too much blue, or like a weird purpley blue down there. So let's shift the blue slightly more cyan, and we'll just kind of minimize it just a little bit. Then we'll throw a big old radial, nice soft one in the middle, and cool that off so the water's less of that yellowy brown, even though that's what it was. But there, that feels a little bit better. Boy, I don't know. I might want to punch these whites up and maybe these highlights just a little bit more globally. I really do want this mess of white to just kind of get bright, but I want it to be brighter down towards the bottom. So now I'll put a linear on and just drop the exposure subtly on the top so that this area is getting a little bit more brightness. And then I must have been shooting through something here, some foreground brush or something. So we'll lower the exposure, cool it off, maybe hit it with some dehaze to try and get rid of that. And then a little bit of green so it's not quite as magenta. There we go. All right. Let's go into Photoshop. We'll see if we can sort of enhance that a bit there. Sorry if you guys hear the dogs barking in the background. Hopefully it's not too loud if you do. All right. Curves. We're just going full in brightness right there. We're going to paint that in 60% opacity right around there. There. Let's do like 20%. Across here. There we go. And then we're going 100% with black. We're going to get rid of any of that lightning that hit that. It's always fun when I say lightning, like it's like thunder and lightning on this. All right, there we go. So watch this. Before, after. Yeah, see that brightness around it just makes the black stand out. I think I went too far over here, so we'll go 50% opacity, paint with black. Just get rid of that there. I mean, I don't know. The duck, it needed to be bigger, Like, I think it just needed to be larger. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like a crop in could help a little bit, but it's not. The duck's head's not tack sharp either. This is another one that it's like, it's kind of interesting, but I really wanted that duck to show more. It was pretty far away. It was just a damn duck's head sticking out of the water. The light was certainly not ideal. But let's go ahead and reset that, and then I think we got one more that should be kind of cool. I mean, yeah, the before and after on this is quite nice. You can see how much more the duck stands out on the left than it does in our original here. That's definitely an improvement, but it's still, I don't know, it's certainly not my favorite of the set. All right, last one here. Again, we have some crookedness to deal with, and I'm definitely just going to take off the black all the way up top. I don't need it or want it all. We'll go offset here and let's rotate a little bit more. A little bit less of that black up there. There we go. But a great sense of movement in this one. So again, I'm going to lift up the highlights, get those whites up a little bit. It's never ideal to shoot this stuff in the sun, but I think I kind of got away with it. I'll lift the shadows just a little bit there, drop the blacks. Watch this. I'm going to try something a little different here. We'll do the radial, invert it, and then we're just going to hit the rest with some dehaze to see if we can get that water to show up even more like before or after. Yeah, see, that just gives us that contrast on all the water, but not the duck. Crop-wise, I'm just going to come in a little bit tighter off the bottom here. That one sort of white splash that was kicking up there just was kind of distracting. This all feels a little bit better now. I don't think there's anything to really do in Photoshop on this one. I'll bring it into Photoshop and I will just do, I'll just do a quick click with the clone tool there. Give me something to save. We'll save it and close it. And yeah, I think we're done with that one. Again, this one's more interesting than the last one, I think, but I'm not in love with it. Let's take a look at all of these finished Photoshop files there. And yeah, I mean, what a difference between, like, look at this, the sun here, and then these nice cool tones. And actually, you know what? Now that I look at this again, there's like some sort of purple tones showing in this, some magenta tones in the highlights. So let's throw a curve on it. We'll go to the green channel up here. Just put a point in, one click, yeah, maybe even just like one click up there, and then I'll lower the opacity a little bit on that. But there we go. It sort of takes, yeah, that purple cast out of it. I just kind of noticed it when I looked at all the rest of these photos. So let's get that saved. And then one more time, we'll take a look at all the final images there. There we go. 8 of them there. Nice variety. Some really fun ones here. I think that's probably one of my favorites. This one's got some great sense of movement. I love the waterfall coming down there. The mood on this one's really cool. And then a great sense of motion there and a little bit there as well. So, you know what? And looking at all these, I feel like, look at this, the whites, they feel a little dull on this one. So sometimes it's nice to sort of look at everything as a whole. And so, yeah, I think we can pop this one open now and take a look at just throwing a curve on there, punching up those whites a little bit, just making it feel slightly less dull. And then maybe, yeah, something like that. I think that works. Cool. Let's get that saved. And then one more time, let's just look at the whole set. Yeah, it's funny. And the image looked great on its own, and it was fine. But I think this is an improvement, and especially when we kind of view it as a whole set there, you know? There we go. Doesn't feel quite so dull anymore in that entire set. All right. Thank you so much. I hope you guys really like this one. I'm really happy and proud with this set. It's something that I just really tried to get very unique and different. I've never shot ducks like this in such fast moving water with such slow shutter speeds. I know it's been done before, but I think, like I said in the original videos, I've always seen it done with the birds perched on something. So getting them in the water, actually swimming like that, I think was quite the challenge, and pretty cool that some of these images turned out.